Most people spend their lives searching for the moment they became a parent. Mine came in a hospital room at 2:14 a.m. Not on the day my daughter was born, but on the day I signed the papers to give her half of my life. You don't really understand love until you're sitting under those fluorescent hospital lights, cold air crawling under your gown, listening to a doctor say, "If you don't donate, she won't make it." That kind of sentence doesn't come with time to think. It doesn't come with choices. It simply lands in your chest and explodes. I remember looking down at my hands, the same hands that had held her when she was 3 months old, when she couldn't stop crying unless I rocked her against my heartbeat, and realizing there was no world, no version of life where I let her die. "Take it," I said. My voice didn't shake. My fear did. They prepped me fast. IV in one arm, pen in the other. A nurse whispered, "Most people hesitate. You didn't." "How could I?" I asked. She smiled sadly. "You'd be surprised." I wasn't surprised. Not yet. Not then. Back then I believed children were the safest parts of your heart walking around in the world. I didn't know yet that some of them grow up to forget where they came from and who bled for them. They wheeled her away before me. My baby. My girl. 19 years old and fighting a condition that was eating her from the inside out. She looked so small on that stretcher. "Dad," she whispered, gripping my hand, "you don't have to do this." I squeezed back. I already did. She cried. I cried. They separated us. When I woke up after surgery, the pain hit me like a hammer swung with God's full strength. It felt like someone had shoved a burning fist into my side. But when I turned my head, she was there. Alive. Breathing. Sleeping peacefully. I stared at her for hours, ignoring the pain, ignoring the wires, ignoring the machines. If love had a shape, it was her silhouette in that hospital bed. For the first time in months, I could breathe. A nurse came in and said, "You're one of the lucky ones. Not every parent gets to save their child." I didn't feel lucky. I felt humbled, broken open, rebuilt. My daughter woke up the next day. The moment our eyes met, she whispered, "You saved me. I will never forget that moment." Her voice cracking, her fingers reaching for mine, her tears falling into my palm. No gift on earth could ever equal that. I didn't know that those words, those beautiful, trembling words, would be the last sincere ones she ever spoke to me. Recovery was long, painful, slow. Every morning I'd feel a dull ache where the scar lived, a constant reminder that a piece of me walked inside someone else now, and I was proud of it. I showed that scar like a badge. Not for praise, not for pity, but because it meant I had done the one thing a parent is supposed to do: protect your child at any cost. We grew closer that year or so, I thought. She'd visit after classes. I'd cook her favorite meals. She'd tease me about walking too slow or standing up too fast. We laughed a lot, and when people asked her what happened, she'd smile and say, "My dad saved my life." Every time she said it, I felt something warm bloom in my chest. Maybe that was my mistake, believing warmth lasts forever, because 1 year later, everything changed. It happened at a family gathering, my sister's house, crowded, loud, full of laughter and barbecue smoke curling through the backyard. My daughter arrived with her friends, looking beautiful, confident, full of life. She moved through the room like she owned it, and I watched her proudly from the corner, smiling at every compliment she received. "She looks amazing. She's so strong. I can't believe how well she recovered." I didn't correct them. Didn't add, "She recovered because I gave her my kidney." I didn't need to. Her life was the proof. At some point she approached me, eyes darting around like she was embarrassed by something. "Dad," she whispered, "can we talk outside?" I followed her out to the patio, expecting something sweet, maybe gratitude, maybe a private moment of connection like we once had. What I got instead hit harder than any pain from surgery. She ran a hand through her hair, looked around, then said quietly, "Dad, Can you please not talk too much today? I blinked. What? You always make things awkward. You tell long stories. You embarrass me sometimes. I felt the words like a slow stab. Embarrass. Awkward. Too much. She continued, voice tight with frustration. I just want today to go smoothly. My friends don't need every detail of my life. Or yours. My throat tightened. My chest constricted. I opened my mouth to speak, to ask her what she meant, to remind her of who I was. And then, I saw it. Not her face. Not her eyes. Not her tone. Her scar. Right there beside mine. Hidden beneath her clothing but visible enough. 2 matching marks from the same table. The same sacrifice. The same night I nearly died for her. My daughter saw my eyes fall to it, and she tugged her shirt down to hide it. Like she was ashamed of it. Ashamed of. Something cold slid through my veins. I lifted my hand and gently touched my own scar through my shirt. She didn't notice. She didn't care. And in that quiet moment, in the space between her request and my breath, I realized something I had never allowed myself to imagine. Not every life you save will value you. Not every sacrifice is remembered. Not every scar means loyalty. Some scars only show what you lost. There's a certain kind of heartbreak that doesn't slam into you all at once. It doesn't scream. It doesn't bleed dramatically like the stories in books. No. Some heartbreaks arrive quietly. Softly. Like a whisper behind your ear saying you're losing her. And you don't even know when it started. That's what the next year felt like. The year after the surgery. The year after the life I gave her. The blood I shared with her. The incision we both carried like matching badges of survival. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Not really. But heartbreak doesn't show its face immediately. It reveals itself in pieces. It began in the most ordinary way. I texted her one morning. Want me to pick you up from class today? We used to do that. I'd drive her home from the university, grab her a smoothie, talk about her day. Her reply came fast, cold, clipped. No thanks, I'm good. No emoji. No dad. No warmth. Just 4 words. The kind you send to a stranger. I stared at my phone longer than any grown man should. Tried to tell myself she was busy. Pressed send anyway. Okay, sweetheart. Let me know if you need anything. She never replied. That night, I sat in my chair, fingers tracing the scar near my ribs. It ached sometimes, but not because of the surgery. It ached because her distance made it feel empty. One evening, I stopped by her apartment with a bag of groceries. Her favorites: plantain chips, ginger tea, my homemade stew. She opened the door only halfway. Oh, Dad, you should have texted. I did, I reminded her gently. Oh, right, I was busy. Behind her I saw movement. Laughter. The shadows of people sitting on the couch. Friends. People she wanted to impress. She slipped outside quickly, blocking the view. Dad. Maybe just drop it here. I can bring it in later. I smiled. The smile of a man trying not to show how deeply that hurt. Of course, I said. Then, like a dagger slipped between ribs, she added, and maybe next time, don't come by unannounced. It's just, my friends don't get our dynamic. Our dynamic. As if I were a complication. An inconvenience. A difficult part of her story. The type you avoid explaining. I nodded. Set the grocery bag down. And walked away before the tears could gather. It was her birthday. I always gave her handwritten letters. One every year since she was 3. This one was special. The first birthday after she got a second chance at life. I wrote about memories she probably forgot, how she used to sleep on my chest. How she'd make me check for monsters under her bed. How she'd whisper, "Daddy, protect me," before falling asleep. I placed the letter in a small box with a gold necklace. One that matched the bracelet I gave her mother before she passed. At the dinner table she opened it. Her eyes flickered with recognition. The letter, the necklace, the lifetime inside. But she didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just said, "Oh." Then she put it aside to check her phone. 5 minutes later, she took a selfie with her friends and posted, "Love celebrating another year with the people who matter the most." My daughter, the girl I once carried on my shoulders, had started treating me like a background extra in her own life, and I pretended not to notice. We were in her car. She had picked me up for lunch, one of the rare times she initiated anything. Music was loud. Her tone was breezy. "Dad. Quick question," she said, her eyes on the road. "If my friends ask, don't say too much about the kidney thing, okay?" My fingers went numb. "What do you mean, don't say too much?" She exhaled sharply, annoyed. "When you talk about it, it just sounds dramatic. People don't need to know personal stuff." "Personal?" I said slowly. "It saved your life. I know that, Dad. But people think it's weird when parents act like heroes. It makes me look," she hesitated, "dependent." The silence in the car became heavy enough to choke on. "You think talking about surviving makes you look weak?" I asked. Her jaw tightened. "You don't get it." And for the first time, I realized she was right. I didn't get it. I didn't understand how the daughter whose life I watched fade in a hospital bed, the daughter whose heartbeat I prayed for, the daughter whose scar matched mine, could now treat the greatest act of love I ever gave her like a secret she was embarrassed by. One day, my sister posted an old photo of my daughter at the hospital, her in a wheelchair, me beside her, both smiling weakly, matching scars peeking from our bandages. Family members commented, "Your dad is a hero. What a blessing. You two are so strong." Everyone reacted with hearts and claps. Except her. My daughter commented, "Please don't post pictures of me like this. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing." The scar that kept her alive embarrassed her. I stared at the photo until my vision blurred. I typed, "It wasn't meant to embarrass you. It was meant to remind us you survived." She replied with, "Can we not make everything so emotional?" I didn't reply, because for the first time in my life, I didn't know what to say to my own child. It was 2 weeks before the family gathering. She came home late, tired, irritated, barely wanting to talk. I tried anyway. "How are classes?" "Fine. How's the kidney checkup schedule?" "It's handled." "Need anything?" "No." Every answer was a door closing in my face. But the moment that shattered me came when she stood from the couch and winced slightly, touching her side. Her scar. The one beside mine. I moved toward her instinctively. "Are you okay?" I asked softly. She stepped back. "I'm fine. You don't need to hover over me all the time." Hover. Worrying was hovering. Loving was hovering. Saving her was hovering. She walked toward her room. Just before she closed the door, she said, "Dad, you don't have to act like we're best friends. You did what you did. That's it." The door and in the echo of that slam, the truth hit me so hard it nearly knocked me breathless. She didn't want a father anymore. She wanted distance, space, a life without reminders, without gratitude, without me. And maybe the saddest part wasn't that she pulled away. It was that she pushed me into a version of myself I never thought I'd become. A man who saved a life only to lose the person in it. The day of the family gathering began like any other. But something in the air felt off. Not heavy, not dramatic, just tilted. The kind of feeling you get when a storm is still a day away, but you can already smell the rain hiding behind the clouds. I stood at my bathroom mirror that morning, buttoning a shirt my wife once said made me look dignified, and for a moment I caught sight of my scar in the reflection. A thin, pale reminder along my side, curved slightly like a crescent moon. I touched it out of habit, gently, as if the memory beneath it could bruise. Then I remembered hers. The matching mark she carried on her body, the one that connected us deeper than any bloodline ever could, and a small smile tugged at my lips. That smile would not survive the day. The house was already full when I arrived. Laughter spilled out of the open windows, someone's music drifted through the yard, and people I hadn't seen in months waved at me as I walked up the driveway. My sister greeted me with a long hug, warm and fierce, the kind that reminds you you're loved. Inside, cousins called my name, uncles slapped my back, and for a brief moment, I felt the old comfort of belonging. My daughter wasn't there yet. I checked the doorway every few minutes, pretending I wasn't. Eventually I stopped pretending. She walked in an hour later with a group of friends, 3 of them, and I recognized none. They were young, stylish, laughing, full of the kind of energy that makes older people step aside automatically. My daughter saw me across the room and gave me a small wave, the kind you give someone you once knew but aren't sure how to greet anymore. I raised a hand back, hoping she'd come over. She did. Instead, she drifted toward the kitchen, where her friends stood waiting, her smile larger for them than the one she had given me. I watched her talk animatedly, watched her gestures, watched her lean in to whisper something to one of the girls. They all turned to look at me. Not curious, not impressed, just looking. And then they laughed. I pretended not to see it. Eventually I approached her. Fathers approach. Daughters seldom do. "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did your drive go okay?" She gave me a tight smile, barely glancing at me. "Yeah, fine." One of her friends asked something, and my daughter turned away mid-sentence, answering her instead. I stood there for a moment, not sure whether to wait or walk away. I chose waiting. It was the wrong choice. After another half-minute of being invisible, I stepped back, nodded, and pretended I had somewhere to be. The day moved strangely after that. People ate, laughed, played games on the lawn. I floated through conversations like a ghost, smiling politely, answering politely, but feeling somewhere deep inside that something was shifting. Or maybe had already shifted long ago and I was only now realizing it. As evening rolled in and lights strung across the backyard flickered on, my daughter approached me finally. Her friends lingered behind her, whispering, watching her with expectant looks, as if waiting for a performance. "Dad," she said quietly, almost urgently, "can we talk outside for a sec?" I felt a sting of hope, the foolish, soft part of me, lighting up. "Of course," I said, and followed her toward the patio. We stepped out into the cooling air. Crickets murmured somewhere in the grass, and laughter from inside the house drifted out in uneven waves. She stood with her arms crossed, eyes darting around like she was checking to make sure no one was listening. Then she said the sentence that cracked something in me so deeply, I swear I felt the sound of it inside my bones. "Dad, please don't talk too much tonight. You make things awkward." I froze. I don't even remember breathing. She continued before I could form any words. "It's just, you ramble. A lot. And people don't really get your stories. You've always been kind of intense. I just don't want you to make things weird. Weird. Awkward. Too much." It was such a small request, spoken so casually, but the cruelty lived in its ease, as if she had rehearsed it, practiced the tone that would land softly, but still cut deep. I looked at her then, really looked at her. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't confused. She was embarrassed of me. I didn't speak immediately, because I was trying to understand how a moment like this could exist between 2 people who shared literal organ tissue. Then, without warning, her shirt shifted slightly as she tugged at her sleeve and I saw it. Her scar. Just the edge of it. The familiar curve, the twin to mine. And she saw me looking. Her hand snapped down, covering it quickly. Hiding it, hiding us. Something inside me sank so slowly it felt like drowning. Finally, in a voice quieter than anything I'd ever heard from myself, I said, I make things awkward. Her eyes flickered. A flinch, maybe a regret, maybe just discomfort. But whatever it wasn't love. Not the kind I recognized.
Dad, it's just, my friends don't need to hear all your deep speeches or life stories. You always take things so far.
I want today to be light, fun. I swallowed hard, the back of my throat burning. You think I embarrass you? She didn't deny it. And silence in moments like that is louder than any confession. I'm not trying to hurt you, she said quickly. I'm just asking you to keep things simple today. Don't bring up old stuff. Don't say emotional things. Don't talk about the surgery, or, you think the surgery is old stuff? I whispered. She blinked rapidly. Dad, please don't make this dramatic. Dramatic. I felt something crumble inside me. Old memories, childhood laughter. The times she used to fall asleep on my chest. The way she once clung to me when she was scared. The way she cried on the hospital bed before they wheeled her in. All of it collapsed under that one careless word. I gave you my kidney, I said softly. Not out of anger but out of disbelief. I gave you a piece of my body. So you could live. She looked away like the air embarrassed her. Dad, can you not say it like that? People will hear. People will hear. People will hear that I loved you enough to let surgeons cut into me. People will hear that I almost died so you could live. People will hear that I saved you. I stepped back without meaning to, the patio suddenly cold under my feet. She touched her wrist nervously, avoiding my eyes. Just be cool tonight, okay, please. I didn't answer, because I couldn't. Not a single part of me could produce a word that didn't taste like grief. She hesitated, then went back into the house, smiling brightly for her friends as though nothing had happened. She hugged one of them. They whispered something. They all looked in my direction. More laughter. My daughter laughed too. I stood alone on the patio, staring at my scar, fingers trembling as they traced the outline. I felt the ache rise, not the physical throb, the emotional one. The ache of realizing you weren't losing your child, because somewhere along the way you already lost her. And that was the moment everything inside me shifted. Not with anger, not with rage, but with clarity, sharp, painful clarity. The clarity of a man who finally understands the truth. Sometimes you give someone life, and they grow into a person who no longer sees you in theirs. I stayed on that patio a long time after she walked away. Long enough for the laughter inside the house to turn into a dull hum, long enough for the lights to glow warm against the night, long enough for the air to thicken with the soft chill that comes just before darkness settles fully. I could hear them, her and her friends, laughing, joking, living in a world where I didn't seem to exist, where I was an accessory. A footnote. A shadow at the edge of the party, somewhere between family and inconvenience. Eventually, the noise shifted. The sliding door opened, spilling warm light onto the patio. My sister stepped out, a plate of food in her hand. She sat beside me silently, handing me the plate without a word. That's the thing about siblings. Sometimes they know not to ask, not to prod, not to speak. She just sat there, watching the wind ripple the trees. After a moment, she said softly, I saw what happened. I nodded but didn't trust myself to speak. She squeezed my hand, gentle as ever. I'm sorry, she whispered. I nodded again. Not long after, the party began winding down. Cars pulled away. Goodbyes echoed through the night. Doors closed, lights dimmed. Eventually only close family remained. I heard her voice somewhere inside the house, breezy, cheerful, unaffected. You'd never guess she'd just broken her father's heart. My sister touched my shoulder. Talk to her, she said quietly. Not for her, for you. And so I stood, slowly, warily, painfully, and walked back inside. The living room was warmer than the patio, filled with the leftover smell of food and perfume. My daughter stood by the kitchen counter, gathering her things. When she saw me, she gave a small, polite smile like I was an acquaintance she barely remembered. "Oh," she said. "I was just about to say goodbye." I nodded once. "Let's talk before you go." Her posture stiffened instantly, the way someone tenses when they know they're about to be confronted, but hope to avoid it. "Dad, can this wait? I'm tired. I have an early class." "It can't wait," I said. She sighed, visibly annoyed. "Okay, fine. What is it?" There it was. Her tone. The impatience. The dismissal. The same voice she used earlier, telling me not to embarrass her. I looked at her then, really looked at her, and I saw not my child, not the little girl who climbed on my chest and fell asleep listening to my heart, not the young woman who cried when she thought she wouldn't survive her illness, not the trembling hands gripping mine before the surgery. I saw a stranger wearing my daughter's face. She crossed her arms. "Dad, why are you looking at me like that?" "Like what?" "Like you're disappointed in me." I inhaled deeply. "Because I am." She blinked, surprised. "What? Why?" "For how you've been treating me," I said softly. "For how distant you've become. For talking to me like I'm an inconvenience. For acting like the scar that kept you alive is something dirty you want to hide." She opened her mouth, but I continued before she could speak. "I gave you a kidney," I said. Not angrily, not dramatically, just truthfully. "A piece of my body, of my life. And I'd do it again 100 times. But I never imagined the person I saved would look at me like I'm something to be embarrassed by." "Dad, that's not," she started, but her voice shook slightly. "You're twisting things." "No," I said calmly. "I'm seeing things clearly." Her eyes flickered with something, fear, maybe guilt, but she pushed it down fast. "It's not that deep," she muttered. "You just overthink everything." I stepped closer, slowly, gently, the way a father approaches a child he no longer recognizes. "Do I? Or are you hiding from the truth because you don't like the reflection it shows you?" She swallowed but didn't answer. "You told me not to talk too much," I continued. "You told me I make things awkward, that I embarrass you. You told me to pretend nothing happened, to ignore the surgery, to hide what I gave you, to hide what we share." She looked down at her feet, fiddling with her bracelet, avoidance thick in her posture. "I don't need you to praise me," I whispered. "I don't need gratitude. I don't need speeches or gifts or credit. I never wanted any of that." She looked up confused. "Then what do you want?" I took a shaky breath. "Respect." She blinked. "Just respect," I repeated. "Enough to not talk down to me. Enough to not treat me like something you have to manage or hide. Enough to remember that I am your father. Enough to acknowledge what we went through together." Her jaw tightened. "Dad, I'm sorry you feel this way, but people grow. They change. I'm not a kid anymore. I have a life. I can't always cater to your emotions." I stared at her, really stared, and something inside me broke cleanly, not the jagged break of chaos, but the clean, silent snap of realization. She wasn't coming back, not to who she used to be, not to who we once were, not to the daughter who whispered, "You saved me," through tears. That girl was gone. Maybe she'd outgrown me. Maybe she wanted distance. Maybe she didn't know how to reconcile survival with gratitude. Maybe she resented the reminder that she'd needed saving. Maybe the scar reminded her of helplessness, of dependence, of vulnerability she didn't want anyone to see. Maybe, in saving her life, I'd given her something she didn't know how to carry, and maybe she hated me for it. I exhaled slowly. "You're right," I said. "People do change." She nodded. "Exactly. And you have." Another nod. "Yes. And so have I." She frowned. "Dad, What do you mean? I looked at her, my voice breaking in the softest way. I can love you, I said without allowing you to hurt me. Her breath caught. And I can care for you, I continued without accepting disrespect. She shifted, suddenly uneasy. And I can save your life, I finished, without losing mine in the process. Her eyes widened, the weight of the words landing like stones. She opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, Dad, are you saying you're done with me? I swallowed hard. No, I'm saying I'm done chasing someone who keeps running away. She stood frozen, the air between us suddenly thick, fragile, sharp. I took a step back, not in retreat, but in release. When you're ready to talk to me, as a daughter, I said quietly, I'll be here. Her lip trembled just slightly. Just enough. And if you never are, I paused, letting the truth settle, then I'll still survive. The same way I survived the surgery. The same way I survived giving her a part of myself. The same way I survived losing her long before this conversation. I walked past her, the room suddenly too small, too heavy. She didn't follow. She didn't call my name. She didn't apologize. She just stood there, looking at her own scar like she was seeing it for the first time. And in that moment, for the first time since giving her my kidney, I felt something I never thought I'd feel again. Peace. Because I finally understood the truth. I gave her life. I gave her hope. I gave her a future. But I could not give her gratitude, or maturity, or decency, or love. Those were hers to choose. And she chose something else. So I walked out of that house quietly, stepped into the night air, and breathed deeply. The kind of breath that comes after setting down a heavy load you've been carrying for far too long. And as the door closed behind me, I whispered something only the darkness heard. I saved her, but I won't lose myself for her ever again.